really did have great fun. We've got some to share with you. So to kick us off, we really started with one of the key pillars of talent and brand, which is employee content and authenticity. But authenticity is bandied around so much, right? Hence the pajamas.
It's everywhere. I think I wrote a post and I think I said it about 3 times, but it was deliberate. But so it's also the same as human-centric content, which I think is another one of my pet peeves at the moment. It's more that I think you just get all these buzzwords and then you're trying to create content around the buzzword, and actually if you just strip the buzzword back, what does it mean? And essentially it's being real. It's not being polished, it's just being natural. But also there can be a room for polished content if you've got a brand that actually prefers it. It doesn't make a story any less bad, but I think you've got to work with what you've got, and you can get some really interesting stuff around it. But yeah, human-centric content and authenticity are 2 of my biggest pet peeves at the moment, I think.
Yeah, totally. And do you think it's balancing the 2? Like we're talking about, like, you know, the strategy of like having still the time and place for hero images and getting your message clear, but then a balance of how you sort of amplify and extrapolate that and interpret it in different markets and get different perspectives.
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's also knowing that what works in one place won't work somewhere else. So I think it's really, local's great. And also if you've got a really big business or a business that's really different, a strategy that works in one part of that business will not work for someone else. You've got to meet people where they're at, and you've got to find somebody's story where they're at. I've taken part in videos before where we've had colleagues who they just come and they've just been singing to us because we've been doing Christmas videos or something like that, and it's been really exciting. But we've not prompted them to do it; they're just really happy. And I think it's just going to see someone where they're at and actually walking in their shoes. You'll get the best out of them. If you're asking someone to go to a studio and it's a bit uncomfortable, you're not going to get like their best story or their best anything because it's unnatural for them.
Yeah, I always use the analogy, and if I could say analogy, that's what I'd use. You could ask me 5 minutes beforehand, say, oh my God, there's a conference on, you know, talent marketing, whatever it is, I'm supposed to present in front of 1,000 people, I'm sick, I'm drunk, whatever it is, please could you do it? And I can go on stage in a second and happily talk to everyone, but put a video or camera or just or an ordinary camera in front of me and I freeze and stumble and the ums and ahs. So yeah. I think, yeah, you're quite right. It's meeting people in different places where they like to be behind the scenes, whether it's written, whether they like to be behind a video, whether it's, you know, or whether, as you say, it's doing their own thing. But it's meeting, I like that, meeting people where they are. Yeah. Makes absolute sense to me. So I'm just 1,000 people, but nothing on my own.
Something like that. I think it's also like, whenever there's something new, everyone hops on it. It's a bit like it's a bit of a trend. You've got to do everything that's the same as everyone else. And actually if it's not broke, don't fix it. I think we're going to go into that for something else a bit later, I know, but I think it's the same thing when you're looking at your employee content. I think what works now will still work. Look at how it's resonating with people, look at how it's engaging with people, with actually your other colleagues. Like, how do other people like it? Once you get a first follower for something, you'll get loads of people who want to jump on the same bandwagon. But I think it's just, you see something, it's shiny, it's a bit like a magpie, you go after it, and actually you don't need to, because what you've got already is brilliant.
Well, maybe.
Maybe, hopefully.
And I think when you were saying about like the follower piece, I don't know if you remember, this is from years ago, and I think I was presenting, I always reveal my age on these sessions. About 10 years ago, I think I was presenting this, that I think it's a British clip of a music festival, and this dude just like doing some crazy dancing all on his own. He's just in his space, he's happy, he's doing his thing. I might have to share it afterwards. And then slowly but surely you see people like nudging, looking, laughing at him. And then by the end of it, everyone's dancing with him. And I think that's a great analogy. I think I used this when I was on LinkedIn. It's not about building a following, but actually like attracts like. And sometimes you don't know that you want to be dancing like a loon. Actually, I always want to be dancing like a loon, but now as I get older, I'll be like, oh, what are they doing? And then before I'm up there, before I know it, I'm there throwing some shapes. But my point about this is people attract people, like attracts like. So however you're doing it, and why are we talking about employee content, authentic content? It's because they are the people that have the networks. They are the people that will attract more of the same. So if you want an organization of people dancing like loons, get one of them doing it and the rest will follow. But
100%.
Analogy aside, tech people know what tech people like, nurses know what nurses like, that environment. So don't be pig-headed enough to think that you know best. Allow your people that freedom a bit.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's really true. I think it's also comes down to the bits with you around what's innovation. I think going back to your shiny and new, but then also always thinking that you've got to change what you're doing. And I think innovation can mean so many different things to so many different people, but it can be as simple as you've always been on LinkedIn and now you suddenly decided that you're going to be on TikTok. That's brilliant. But what innovation doesn't have to be groundbreaking. It doesn't have to be, throwing everything out the window and starting new. It can be something really simple, but for you and for your organization, it's actually really innovative.
Yeah, totally. And like innovation could just be being vulnerable, for example. We were working with one of our clients recently, and they were trying to do a D&I campaign for International Women's Day. I'm sure this resonated with a lot of people, and their default was almost just sharing, another career piece, and just default was to be super professional. That was fine, but we had to work really hard with them to say that actually this has to come from the heart. If you want to cut through, if you're being just, this has to be real, your stories. And so actually innovation to them was doing some videos, but actually being vulnerable, open and honest, for example.
And I really like that. I think also like with those DE&I campaigns, I saw someone post and they said, I'm not posting on International Women's Day. She posted on the Monday. And actually a Monday afterwards, I actually really liked that, because actually the point was, yes, everyone does this roll up to these weeks. Everyone does, we're celebrating our females, and that's brilliant. And it's really good to do that. But what do you do the week after and the month after?
Yeah, totally.
Organizational policies, like, do they hold up to that? And I think that's like with your content, to tie it back, you have to have an element of truth in terms of what you're saying. So if you've got people going out and they're saying, I've got flexible working, do you have a flexible working policy? Like, what actually do you have that supports stuff that people are saying? And then that what you're saying, I'm not going to say the A word, but it's true and it's real and it's great stuff, and people really resonate with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I think the other thing is, when you're thinking about doing this, and you were talking about TikTok earlier, for example, and it's funny, TikTok, I feel like, there's sort of these sort of undulating hills as people use TikTok, don't use TikTok, use TikTok, don't use TikTok. And I think, but I think more organizations are exploring more channels of how they use it and the perception of how they use a channel. So, I think LinkedIn doesn't have to be stiff and corporate. I mean, please, I say this so many times, please don't post another photo of your dog or your cat or a laptop by the beach.
Or a selfie.
Pardon?
Or a selfie.
Yeah. You said the selfie word. I'm not going to stop laughing. Oh no, anybody hysteria hits in, no more selfies. But but yes, but it doesn't have to be stiff and corporate. I feel like it's going to the other extreme. So it's actually understanding your channels, but it doesn't have to be quite as casual as LinkedIn. But I think taking the time to understand your brand.
Yeah.
And then, okay, who, as you were saying earlier, which maybe talent segment or which audience can we be fun and use TikTok, or where do we use LinkedIn and be a bit more corporate and straight? And I sometimes think there's not enough thought that goes into, I'm sorry people, sweeping generalization, but not just which channels you use, which talent segments and which people can be authentic in those channels.
Yeah, and I think you can tackle when you use different channels, you can really tackle perceptions about yourself as a brand. So one I really love on TikTok is UPS, because being really honest, the colours of UPS, I'm sorry if anyone from UPS is on here, but the colours from UPS are just really boring. It's brown. But you go into a TikTok and it's a bit like a bundle of joy, because it brings life into the whole channel, and it's really fun. And they do all these different, I mean, I was on it earlier, but they do all these like different little videos and things that are on trends, and it's actually just really fun going on there. But you just tackle your brand perception, and you can breathe life into a different part of your organization or your company that people didn't think was on there, and it tackles their own perception of it as well, which I think is a really nice thing about new channels. And when you want to think about where you're going to put different types of content, I think it's thinking about, how do you want to turn up? What part of you do you want to show? Do you want to be really corporate? That's okay. Do you want to show more of your softer side? That's okay. One of the channels I love on Instagram is Life at PwC. I love it just because it's always got a bit of a golden, warming, really cuddly moment when I go on there, and I'm like, I love the story. I've stopped this channel for a long time. Having a bad day, I go onto that channel, but I love it. And it's just a really good channel. But you look at PwC on the outside and you think corporate, like that's your first thought. But there's so many people stories behind that. There's people behind the brands, and I think that's lovely when you're going on to, and you see different elements of your brand and you bring it to life.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we should show, hey, actually, we're going to show the UPS video. So while Chelsea's perhaps setting that up, oh, that was really quick. I was going to say, I'm just going to pause because I've seen that Alex is sitting in, so we have to wave and say, good morning, Alex.
Or is it afternoon for you?
Oh yeah, good afternoon. I hope the bub's been sleeping. Sorry, back to this is why we end up, sorry people, when Claire and I chat, this is why a half-hour chat ends up into an hour and a half, and sometimes I have to message work if I've got a meeting saying, sorry, on to Claire, and they're like, right, going to make a coffee. So we've got the UPS example here, because I love this one. I agree with you, it's a great one you brought up.
My daughter's first day on the job as AAP's helper, working with Dad. Lots of packages.
You ready for your first?
My husband has been looking forward to this day for so long.
Are we playing other ones?
Are you there? Have we got another one, Chelsea? Or was that, we're just doing that one? There you go, authentic live. I think, oh no, we've got another one. There we go.
How much stuff do you need to be happy? I don't know. How much stuff is there?
This does remind me of myself, actually. Whenever it comes to like Cyber Monday or Black Friday, I'm like, oh dear, parcels.
Yes. It's like Christmas every day here. During COVID, my husband sort of would just shake his head because I was on first name terms with the delivery driver. I think I started leaving him a cup of tea in the morning. Sorry, but UPS, I like, totally not what you'd expect, right?
And I think that's a nice thing about it. Like if you look at loads of different channels, they're pretty much all following the same trends. You got the same music. Like you can scroll on TikTok, and I'm a lurker on TikTok. I don't really post anything, but it's always the same music, but the video is always different. Like the output's always different, even if people are following the same trends. And I think you don't have to be a Thomas Edison. You don't have to do something crazy brilliant. Not saying you can't, but you can. But I think on some channels, I think stuff is given to you, and when you translate that into your brand, you'll find something that's really brilliant and unique anyway. And sharing that will really resonate with the audience that you're trying to attract.
No, agreed. Another really good example, I think, is Washington Post. Their corporate account has a mix of both corporate and employer brand content. It's got like 1.7 million followers. Makes sense. I'm one of them, right? So, but what I like about this is they've got when we were talking earlier, about the balance, where they've got the blend of corporate news stories and then employee content really highlights how you can, for me, like it's the epitome of how you can mix up your content, show alignment to your corporate employer brand. They've really got it right. It's that whole thing, we talk about sort of the inside out, internal brand is your external brand, etc., etc., etc. So while the videos seem a bit scripted and planned, they've still got a really down-to-earth and approachable style, which is not necessarily what you would associate with Washington Post. And they've got a bit of music, captions and trends for me to really capture the hearts. And I think it's future employees, because in my mind, and we've talked about this, so I feel like I'm sort of sharing something for the first time with everyone else, but not with you. Every organisation needs to be future-proofing right now. Because the shift you're going to see in the next couple of years is going to be huge. The audience, the demographics, and I think these guys do it really well. I think we've got another one to show here, Chelsea, if I'm right. Thank you.
Now it's time for What Do You Do at the Washington Post? Stephen, what do you do?
I'm the database editor for investigations.
Well, that sounds super interesting. Can you tell me more?
Yeah, the last story I worked on, I went through about 23,000 court cases by hand and pulled in the data for a story we were working on.
Boy, was that a blast or what?
It was not.
All right, Stephen, you keep doing stuff.
Perfect. But again, for me, that's another example, though, of just because one person looks at that and thinks, oh my God, I could not do that. You will have all the people that do want to do that going, oh my God, that sounds amazing. And in another life, I totally would have done that. So again, I love the fact that they're not afraid to have a bit of personality, leverage the idiosyncrasies and the nuances of different talent segments, right?
Yeah, exactly.